And we're here with Marina Maher. Again, Marina, what is up?
Feels good to be back. What is
I
this,
know
consecutive episodes?
this is too straight for you. This is like this. I mean, if this isn't going on the
Move
top of your
over,
resume,
Connor.
yeah,
See you
Connor's
later,
getting the boot.
Connor.
Connor's getting pushed to the side. Marina's sliding right in. I mean, if this doesn't go on your resume, at the top, near the top at least, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I'm just handing you this. I mean, come on now.
Feels good.
But anyways, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. It was very low key. It was nice to be with family. Nice little break. The game against the Rangers kind of threw that all out the window, but no complaints here. How was yours?
It was good. It was very, as you said, it was low key. It was just family time. It was nice. It's funny. The NBA plays on Christmas. The NFL plays on Thanksgiving. It's nice to have the NHL not be on one of those major holidays, just because it's nice to kind of maybe get the day off, and not do anything
Right.
on it, lounge
Yeah,
around.
I
I don't mind it.
like the game the day after, and you're kind of, a little bloated. You ate a lot the day before, so it was good.
Yeah, no, and obviously the game was not exactly to the Bruins' liking, but I want to focus first on that the latest game Sunday night. Bruins win 3-2 over the Canucks. By the way, I think the Bruins should stop playing Western Canadian teams on Sunday nights. I think this needs to just end because they keep having these bad performances, even though they won on Sunday night against the lowly Canucks, who are, I don't know if you read that article in The Athletic by Thomas Drance about how dysfunctional that organization has become. It is incredible how far they have fallen so quickly, because it was just a few years ago they were in the playoff bubble, and everyone was saying, "Oh, Quinn Hughes, he's going to carry them," and it's not even Quinn Hughes' fault. Like, that team has bigger problems, but incredible to see how far they've fallen. And we'll get to the state of them, because that might have an impact on the Bruins, at least trade deadline wise, later in the show. But the star of Sunday night was one Brad Marchand. I mean, no surprise there. He was incredible. And I've talked at length on Bruins Beat. I know you've said it many times. I mean, we both obviously think the world of Marchand. I think he's potentially a top 5 player in the NHL, which is crazy to think. I mean, you remember when he first came into the league. I mean, did you ever think he would be this good?
It's crazy. I think so, because you saw the raw talent, right? Like, I tweeted out during the game that GIF of the energy line when he was with Gregory Campbell
Yes,
and Sean
I saw that.
Thornton.
That was such a good throwback.
And it was just like, it's truly incredible to see where he was, all those years ago to where he is now. I mean, he's literally carrying this team. And it's incredible because, as he gets older, he just seems to getting better. And it's usually backwards, right? Like, as these guys older, maybe they drop off. But it's incredible. And they needed that, right? Like, it did not look good, going into the third. And you talk about, like, the lowly Canucks, and like, that was pretty, that if they lost that game, that would have been a tough pill to swallow for them. So it was a good comeback led by Brad Marchand, just some unbelievable plays. You saw in the second period, he was just hitting everyone and anyone. That's why I tweeted that GIF out, because it's like, he is the energy. He's trying to create whatever, just trying to get this team going. So it's been incredible to watch. And I kind of talked about this on my podcast when David Krejci left and when Zdeno Chara left. You kind of appreciate guys more when they leave. And so I hope Bruins fans can appreciate what Brad Marchand has done these last few years, because it is something special.
Yeah, and again, I've gone back to this so many times with the offseason. A lot of people have said, "Oh, the cup window is closed. This team isn't worth, potentially, spending for and trying to keep going for the Stanley Cup." And I keep going back to one guy, and it's Marchand. Guys like Marchand don't pop up every year. They don't pop up every generation even. I mean, this is a guy who can literally do everything. He's an incredible penalty killer. He's, the heartbeat of your power play. He's, your MVP. He's been that way for a while now. Not just this season, but past seasons. He scores a bunch of goals. He sets guys up so well. I mean, Patrice Bergeron would not have the numbers he has without Marchand. Like, I think that's a very, I think they would admit that. Like, they work together so great. But Sunday night left me with a different takeaway. And the takeaway was, as great as Marchand is, and as much as he carried the Bruins through that, I mean, he carried them in that third period, and even in the second with the big hits, trying to jumpstart the team, he can't carry you all the time. And it feels like he's carrying them a lot to start this season because the scoring behind him has not been there, right? I mean, Pasternak's been a little bit off and on with his scoring. Bergeron's been fine, but the second line's had some production issues. Taylor Hall, third line and fourth line, obviously, especially the third line, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But he can't carry you all the time, and it just keeps going back to this. Is like you need those depth guys to start stepping up. Would you agree that you can't really have Marchand carrying you all the time?
Right, and it's been that problem for a few years now, where if that top line is stopped, they really haven't had anything. They hadn't had that secondary scoring, and they scratched Erik Haula, who was supposed to be that depth centerman. Jake DeBrusk, he had a couple good games early, but he was a scratch. So it's the same conversation we have over and over and over again. Like, where's the secondary scoring? We talked about the defense last episode. So yeah, it's frustrating in that sense, but I think it is actually worth it to invest in this team, because I think this is the last true year that you're going to have a real kick at the can. And I know they're kind of outside the playoff picture right now, but I think the games played in the next couple of weeks will make up for that. So it's interesting. So it's like, yes, Marchand can't do it all. That should give you more of a reason, if you're Don Sweeney, to go fucking help this team, because he's not getting any younger. Patrice Bergeron doesn't know what he's doing at the end of the year, or he might, but he's not telling anybody. So it's like it's almost more frustrating that Don Sweeney hasn't addressed this team properly. Like, no matter what it takes, like even if they don't, or they didn't win a Stanley Cup, I would at least be satisfied that Sweeney tried, right? It seems like he hasn't really tried. I know he brought Hall in last year, and that was a big boost. But then David Krejci left, so it's like, maybe if you got Krejci some help, years back, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah, Taylor Hall could not have come, not at a worse time, but would have been nice to see him come a little sooner. I mean, I think that was sort of the plan with Rick Nash back in the day. I think Rick Nash was sort of supposed to be that guy, and he was during the regular season, but then obviously had the concussion issue. So I always looked at Nash as they tried with him. That was like the guy who was supposed to be next to him. I think they imagined maybe Backus. Obviously with DeBrusk, they definitely did. I mean, they just kept missing. And I don't pin Nash on Sweeney. That was just concussions. Hall again worked out. Like, I think they tried at certain times, but it just was too little, too late, or it wasn't enough. So I just the whole Krejci thing. I mean, it is so obvious, and I think you mentioned this last episode, and I know we both agree on this. They miss him so much. They miss David Krejci.
I miss David Krejci. Yeah,
everybody misses David Krejci.
Everybody misses David Krejci.
And I look at this, the power play and how much he's missed there. I look at even the second unit. When he was on the second unit, he helped out a ton there. I mean, I look at Taylor Hall, and again, this is nothing against Charlie Coyle. Like, and we've said this, like, Coyle's been fine. I don't have any issue with Coyle. He had a sick goal against the Sabres the night before Thanksgiving. That was nuts. That was a snipe. But you miss Krejci, and I just look at a guy like Marchand, and as you said, like, this is the same stuff we're talking about every year, right? Oh, the top line scoring a bunch of goals. Oh, the fourth line shutting down the opposing team top line. Oh, wait, there's no secondary scoring. It's the same stuff. And before we get into potentially some additions they can make, because we're a quarter into the season now. We are a quarter into the season. It is the Canucks, as I mentioned, have a lot of pieces who could potentially be on the move. That's a team that could just be selling everything and everybody that they can potentially get things for at the deadline. And there's some pieces there, right? Brock Besser could potentially maybe be on the move. There's some other names over there. Is it Tyler Mott? He's a bottom six guy. I don't think the Bruins really need him because they got enough bottom six guys to sink a ship. But at the end of the day, I do think that the Canucks have some pieces, and it got me thinking, who could the Bruins maybe take from the Canucks, right? Who could be some guys that the Bruins could get, right? Maybe a top six forward or whatnot. Connor Garland, by the way, love Connor Garland. Wanted him when he was with Arizona, but now he signed a new deal with them, so I don't know if that's really going to pan out. But it made me go back to one thing, Marina, and that is, does this team have what it takes to trade for legitimate pieces, right? And I think too often we look at guys like, oh, just flip DeBrusk. What is DeBrusk getting you right now? What is Erik Haula getting you? What is Jack Studnicka getting you? And I just keep going back to this point of, Marina, do they have anything that they can trade that has any value?
I mean, it's slim pickings, right? It's got to be picks because they don't really have, a lot going on in the talent pool. That's not to say like the Providence Bruins are bad. It's just the Bruins are pretty far behind in that area. Oh, breaking news. Brad Marchand just has been suspended for 3 games for slewfooting Vancouver's Oliver Ekman-Larsson.
3 games.
Wow. That's because his name is Brad Marchand.
That's 100% because his name is Brad Marchand. Has PK Subban been suspended? Was PK Subban suspended? No? Okay.
No, he was fine. Yep. And the Marchand hit was more of like, he didn't go in with the slew foot. You know what I mean? Like it kind of came up at the end. That was my issue with it. Like, if you're not going to suspend PK Subban for what he's done, like, how is this anything? So I don't, maybe
games.
I have a conspiracy theory that maybe it has something to do with the Panarin stuff. Panarin didn't like what Marchand said, so maybe, this is that kind of way of justifying it. But
it's like when someone it's like when someone is to get fired from work, but instead they say like, oh, he took a leave of absence. He's on vacation. They'll be back soon.
That 3 games.
3 games. That's ridiculous. I think that is way too much. I thought this would be a fine. But for most,
and he hadn't been suspended in a while, right? Like he's had some maybe 2-3 years since he's last been.
What's wild is I think this is going to start the whole Marchand's dirty thing again, right? This is going to continue to hurt his MVP candidacy. This is going to continue to hurt his things, and I hate that. Like because I hate seeing people on Twitter and people in general say, "Oh, he's dirty," and the Vancouver broadcast was ripping him on Sunday night.
But does that surprise you? Like,
no, not at all.
Honestly, like I don't understand. Like, it's not a national broadcast. I don't care what you say. Like, Jack Edwards is a home. Like, I want my team to be a homer. I want them to hate the guys I hate. So that it doesn't surprise me whatsoever that they were harping on it.
Yeah, the other thing is, and that's an interesting point you made about like your own broadcasters. I've always I don't understand people who are like, oh, Jack's too much of a homer. It's like, if you're a Bruins fan, why would you want to watch like anybody else call the game, unless it's a national broadcast, right? Unless it's national and it's like down the middle. But if you're watching like your local network, why would you want to watch someone who doesn't like your team or doesn't care about your team, or at least fake it? Like, I don't understand it. But yeah, the Marchand 3 games is baloney. I think that is way too much. And as you said, that is literally because his name is Brad Marchand. Like that is the only reason why he's getting 3 games. Very interested to see how they do over these next 3 games without Brad Marchand. And I do wonder who steps up in his place. I wonder who steps up to that third. Is it Taylor Hall?
Like, obviously, Jake DeBrusk is getting back in the lineup. Where you put him, I could see them like trying Foligno there just because, like, maybe try and get him going offensively. So yeah, it'll be interesting. But yeah, it's because his name is Brad Marchand. I think PK Subban did this 3 times and didn't get suspended. So it's like,
yeah, no, I mean, maybe try Anton Bleed. Guy's been absolutely. Did you see that goal on Sunday night?
But I think he's out. Sniper. I think he's out for a game or 2. Yeah. I think he messed up a shoulder from that.
He isn't stuff in the top 6. But yes, no, he might be out for Tuesday night's game. So they will play the Red Wings, the Predators, and the Lightning without Brad Marchand. That's not great because the Red Wings is a game you should win. Predators is same-ish, you're equal-ish. And then the Lightning you want to beat. You need Marchand for that. Right. So
if you come out of that with 2 out of 3 wins, like, I'll be happy. Like Detroit, absolutely beatable. Nashville is a toss-up, but I think, Craig Smith's first time playing against them, that'll be fun. And then the Lightning, you never know what's going to happen. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Now the narrative has changed. Brad Marchand can no longer be the MVP because he's out for 3 games.
Yeah. No, it's ridiculous. And I think he is legit, especially if the Bruins make the playoffs this year and Marchand continues to play the way he is, MVP candidate for sure, absolutely should be. But again, a lot of national guys won't put that on their ballots and stuff like that. But anyways, back to what we were talking about before news broke. Connor and I always used to joke that we always wanted news to break during the podcast, and now news has finally broken during it. That is like Bruins centric, so I'm kind of happy that it broke while we were recorded. But what you were saying about the Providence Bruins, that as good as they are, there's just not a lot to trade, I think is what you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's a depleted pool that the Bruins have, so it's going to have to be picks, and, they're up against the cap, and then you bring Tuukka Rask into the fold, maybe, then, you're going to have to move somebody out that way. So I don't know. Jake DeBrusk always seems to be, the scapegoat. He's had a tough, few games. So maybe, I don't know, you flip him with picks or whatnot. I still think Jake DeBrusk has a lot more to give, a lot more to show us. So yeah, it's really interesting because they don't have much. And when you don't have much, it's hard to make some deals.
And it's funny, like Jack Studnicka's one who, that was a guy who was touted and someone who they had high expectations for. At least you think you get a lot in a trade, but they keep burying him in Providence. And it's like I feel like you'd want to try to raise his value a bit for potential trades, right? Like Tomas Hertl's the name that everyone kind of goes back to. I look at that and I go, you have nothing. You have to make these first round picks. Like you can't keep dealing off your firsts, and you don't have anything that could be traded. Like you don't want to trade Fabian Lysell, obviously. Like there are certain guys you'd rather kind of keep. And I look at what they have and it's like, I don't know how you can go all in if you have nothing to trade, because you're not trading anybody off the current roster because they're either too valuable or they don't have any value. Like if, it'd be one thing if Jake DeBrusk was doing well, like ish, like, I don't know. How many games he played? 14, 15. If he had like 8 or 9 points, you could be like, all right, that's legitimate, right? That's good. But he has like 6 and he got scratched last game. So I don't know. To me, I look at that and there's nothing there. There's nothing to deal. And do you see, what do you think they're going to do at the deadline? I know it's early, but what do you think they're going to do?
I don't know. It's so tough. I always harp on the defense. Like, I really do think they need a top 4 D more than anything in the world. So it's so tough. And especially because they are outside the playoff picture, come the trade deadline, who knows how far they are out? Who knows how, if they are in the picture. So it's so hard to like even try and come up with something because it's such a weird scenario. Like I said, like if they bring Tuukka Rask into the fold, someone is going to be dealt because I don't know how they make that happen. So I think you'll see maybe some moves sooner than later if they do, in fact, bring him in. So I go top 4D because I think if you have a solid decor and you have, better goaltending than what they have, that top line gives you a chance every night to win. So it's hard.
Yeah. I think the top 4, you need a top 4D. You probably need a depth right shot defenseman as well. I don't know. Again, you don't have much to deal. So I don't know if you can really go out and also get a forward. Like last season, I thought Sweeney had maybe his best deadline ever, right? He goes out and gets Mike Riley, who's a fringe top 4 defenseman, but helped a ton for like a 3rd round pick. And then he went out and got Taylor Hall for a 2nd and Anders Bjork. And I was like, okay, that's all Hall for like nothing. So I don't know how you do that this year, but maybe you try to find a way to do that. Like Sweeney is pretty good at deadlines. I mean, Charlie Coyle was a good deadline pickup for just Ryan Donato, and there's ways you can try to finagle a good deal for yourself. But from my perspective, in late November, I don't know how you do that because again, I don't think you have the assets to really push for a bigger fish that this team needs. Like I think again, they should be competing, but I don't know if you have the assets to go out and compete. So we have discussed Marchand. Can't carry them forever. We've discussed the deadline. Now, the depth scoring has been a legitimate issue, right? Nick Foligno's been solid aside from just scoring. He's been good, right? Good on the net front of the power play. He's done his job. But 2 guys who have not been there particularly of late is Erik Haula and Jake DeBrusk. And it's funny, I was going back and rewatching some of the points of the Rangers game on Black Friday. And the 2 goals that Erik Haula was out for against. And it was just like, dude, what kind of defense is that? Like, I haven't seen a Bruin do that in a long time. And I don't know. Again, I mean, Haula is a guy that you're counting on to potentially put up some points. Not crazy points, obviously, but enough to, make that 3rd line usable. And Jake DeBrusk, again, has been kind of invisible. What's got to change with those guys?
It's so hard because you saw how well Trek Frederick played down the middle there with them. And it's like, wow, like that's how you should be playing. Like, and so it's so tough to say because DeBrusk did have a solid few games. Like we were talking about how good of a preseason he had, and he just can't seem to put it together for long stretches. Like we know he's a streaky player, like we know that, but still, it's so hard to say like what's going wrong with them because they look so good in preseason, but maybe it's just teams figuring them out a bit. I truly do not know where you go from here. I think you just keep trying different guys. I liked how Bruce Cassidy kind of mixed up the lines the other day. It's tough. Like if Bruce Cassidy knew the answers to that, we wouldn't be having this discussion, right? Like if he knew what to do, we wouldn't be continuing to have this discussion over and over again. So I think it's just something that they're going to have to tamper with as they go here. And it sucks because Haula did have some really good games early on, just like DeBrusk. So hopefully it's something that, you know what, he's watching. Maybe he sees some stuff that he didn't before, and then he comes back into the lineup and will look good. So it remains to be seen, but yeah, it's not good.
Not good. But I think, again, with Haula and DeBrusk, I mean, I think sitting them sometimes is good, but for a guy like Haula especially, because DeBrusk, we've seen this, right? He's been streaky his whole career. He's been on and off. Last season, obviously, was a lot of off. For someone like Haula, I feel like you just gotta let him play his way through it, right? Like I think in some ways, for a guy like Haula, who's a veteran of the NHL, he's in a new place. Just kind of like let him play out of it. You know, I know he was terrible in the game against New York on Friday, so like I totally understand. Like, dude, just play defense. If like easiest thing in the world is when you're not scoring goals, just make sure you're good defensively. Cassidy put it as, you know, pulling pucks out of your own net. So at least be good defensively. But I think for a guy like Haula, try to play through it. You know, try to play the guy through it because you've signed him to a good amount of money. This is not just someone you picked up off the street. This is not just a prospect even. Like you need to get something out of him. And I think that maybe letting him play through it, which is something Cassidy's not always been great at, leaving guys in the lineup and letting them play through it. I think you got to do it a little bit. So for me, again, I think with Haula, it's letting him play through. And DeBrusk, I don't know. Like, maybe it's just a rough stretch. But this is just, the streakiness has gone on for too long. And he's up for a new contract after this season. I doubt he returns unless he goes on a crazy streak to end the year. I doubt he returns, which is wild because I remember when he first signed that bridge deal, his whole mindset was like, I'm going to prove myself with this, because it was a 2-year deal, if I remember correctly. And it was like, you know, I'm going to prove it. And that was the whole vibe I got from it. And he was going to prove himself with that deal to get a better one after, which is what a lot of guys use those deals for. And man, like, I don't know how. Again, I think it's gonna have to come from another team, money wise at least, because the performance just isn't there. Like, I don't. Do you see Jake DeBrusk potentially returning after this season?
It's tough to say. Like you say, I think he'd have to get hot for them to justify, you know, the contract and what he'd want to get paid. But I hope so because I do think he has that untapped potential. I think the second you deal him, he's going to shove it in your face and he's going to be that 30-goal scorer that they wanted him to be. Like, I just know that isn't inevitable. So I'm just like, all right, you know, keep sticking with it, keep going. He had such a good preseason and I'm like, come on, like, I wish that's what we've seen from him lately, but we haven't. And so hopefully it takes, you know, I'm sure, especially with Marchand out of the lineup with being suspended, that we'll see him back. So, you know, hopefully he just has like a B under his bonnet and puts together a few good games. But I wouldn't be surprised if they dealt him. I think he's a guy who, if he had a change of scenery, would crush them. He would make them pay. So I don't know. It's interesting. I think this team always has a scapegoat, and for whatever reason, DeBrusk has been that guy, the underperformer and whatever. But man, I hope he puts it together because the second they deal him, I know he's going to put up 30 and he's going to tell Boston to suck it. So I'm hoping it's with us.
That was my theory last year, was that they were going to deal him and he was going to put up 1 billion goals and he was going to be the guy that they drafted. And I don't know. I think that if you're dealing him, I think it needs to be in a package for someone better, right? It needs to be like DeBrusk, a prospect and a second for someone. If you're just trading DeBrusk straight up, you're getting probably a struggling forward in return. Like, you're probably just going to do a young, struggling forward swap, which is something the Bruins never seem to come out on the other side of well. Like, that seems like one of those things that they would definitely, you know, have a guy who's like a fringe third liner and then DeBrusk could go off somewhere. So to me, you trade DeBrusk with other things for something better. I think that's the key there.
It's the only way you'll justify. It's the only way you'll justify, you know, giving him up.
Yes, Absolutely, because it's like, okay, well, if you're Don Sweeney, you can say, well, we have a struggling former first rounder, but he's got a lot of potential. Here's a second and a prospect for someone better. I need to go through the names of trade deadline people before I start speculating, because people are going to think that I know something. If I say, oh, Besser, they're like, oh, Evan's saying the Bruins are getting Besser. But I do think they need because I remember last year it was like, okay, do like DeBrusk a second and a prospect for like Matthias Ekholm. Like that would have made sense. But then
Right.
Ekholm decided, I want to stay in Nashville. So that didn't happen. But need to find a way to potentially get a top 4 guy on that back end. But Marina, before you go, what can the people look forward to with the Bruins work that you do?
Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Marina Maher, and then you can read all my blogs on barstoolsports.com. I'll have something juicy about Brad Marchand, hopefully up here soon. I can't believe it was 3 games. Like it's like if you hear slew footing Brad Marchand 3 games, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But then seeing the play, Marchand hasn't been suspended in a while. PK Subban has done this multiple times and it has injured people doing it and has only been fined. It's like the player safety department has been a joke, and like I feel like they just pull shit out of a hat sometimes.
Yeah, no, I think they kind of go a lot off reputation.
Yeah,
Have they come down on Brendan Lemieux yet?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, no, they haven't. So I was gonna say if Marchand gets 3 games for this, Lemieux better get like 20 for what he did. Because
Right.
geez, like
Yeah.
if this is the standard you're gonna set, so I don't get it. 3 games for that slew foot. I mean, Marchand was going at Ekman Larson all game long. Those two were going at it like crazy. I tweeted, I was like, man, it's wild to see Marchand go at a Swedish Canucks player. I feel like I've never seen this before. I mean, geez. But anyways, the people should go do all of what you said. Follow Marina on Twitter. Go read her stuff on Barstool. Anyways, that has been the Bruins Beat on CLNS Media. I'm Evan Marinofsky. You Bruins Beat listeners, have a great rest of your week.